welcome back. So guess what? Today we are doing the long-awaited Layers of Fear review, which isn't going to be too long, to be honest, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The main one is that this game is so different, and it's in its own completely different category, and because of the nature of this kind of game, there isn't really a whole lot that I want to go over or that I would need to go over in terms of covering ground. For instance, the controls. It's not like a platformer where you're going to be looking at how tight the controls are and just how much accuracy was built into that whole region and just other things. So that, yeah, you guys get the idea. Because this game is very much just walking around and clicking on things, it's going to be, yeah, a bit of a different review. And interestingly enough, when I first sat down to start jotting down notes for this review, I very quickly felt like I was struggling just to formulate any sort of like information for this. And then when I kind of had something in my brain switch where it was like, oh, well, this is a very different game. You are going to use a different approach for this review. Then it kind of just like started clicking a little more. And I realized, okay, yeah, the review is probably going to be more so about just my experience with it and less to do with, yeah, how the game is set up. Like, yeah, that's still a very important part, but yeah, anyway, how about we just get into some of these stuff and we will go from there. So yeah, Layers of Fear Legacy for the Nintendo Switch. Developed by Bloober Team and published by Bloober Team SA. So the premise, there's, in a nutshell, there's this mad as in madness, like there's just this like crazed artist or guy who is just going deeper and deeper into that kind of mentality. Because he is obsessing over creating this magnum opus, like his best piece yet or whatever the case is. And anyway, there are a whole bunch of kind of like family related issues that fuel this obsession or that begin to skew it. So the game really doesn't tell you much at the get-go. Like, there's just this artist that's obsessed with creating this masterpiece, and shit goes down, essentially. So yeah, you don't know too much, and you're just kind of thrown into the horror show. So anyway, this came out February 21st of this year. So I will talk about the controls just briefly. So you of course have, like, because it's like a walk around and click on things, you have like a little point in the middle of the screen that you can move around to zero in on things. So I like that there's a bit of resistance, like it's not just like flying everywhere all over the place. And maybe in the options you can adjust the sensitivity. I never checked that, to be honest. But yeah, there's enough like resistance to, yeah, just like keep a steady hand or like keep control fairly easily. So I like that. But yeah, for the most part, you literally just, you're walking around. It's at a very gradual pace. There's, as far as I could tell, there was no option to run. And so yeah, there isn't much more to say about that. One issue I did notice though, which I might as well mention now, is that sometimes when I was wanting to go to like grab a doorknob, for instance, or pull a drawer open, I would have the, and this happened numerous times, but like spread out through the whole experience, of course. Sometimes it wouldn't register that my little icon was right on the doorknob or whatever else. So I would sometimes back up and go back to it, or sometimes it was me maybe just not being close enough, because I'm not just blaming the game. It's like some of those times were probably my doing as a player, but that's something I did notice as a trend, a bit of a trend, is just certain things not registering right away. So one thing I did really like about how they have the controls set up is that if you are at a 3 or 4 level chest of drawers, for instance, now I'm not 100% sure if this was intentional, but something else that I noticed, and this is like something I really, really thought was cool, because I've never seen this before in this kind of game, is that, like, let's say I'd start at the top drawer, and I would open it, do my thing, and then close it. The icon would automatically shift down to the next drawer, so it's like I didn't have to like go through the effort of lining it up with the next thing that I want to do. It would just go boom down to the next one. Same thing, I would open it, check out a few things, push it shut, and then it would just slot down to the third. So if that was intentional, that was a really cool inclusion on their part, because it's just helps to streamline things. And of course, like if you're checking one, you're probably going to check all of them in order. So I thought that was like really sweet. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so let's, but yeah, like, okay, so I don't really think there's too much else in way of the controls. Like, pulling doors open was great. Like, you would just hold down and then like the one button for triggering, and then you would pull away with the other one, or however that works. Sometimes what would happen, actually, now that I think of it a little more, is I would go to do it, but maybe sometimes I would slip, and so it would just like, the door would just like open part way, and so then I would be going through the effort of re-grabbing the knob and then like pulling with a little more attention to that. And of course, like, obviously that is going to happen in real life. Like, if you just like let go of a doorknob as you start opening, it may not have the amount of force required for pulling it all the way open. So yeah, I get that. So yeah, that's like interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it for controls, to be honest. Like, everything works fine for the most part. So like, I don't really have any huge issues or anything like that. And for the basic nature of this game, which, like I said, is to walk around, click on things, or tamper with them, the controls are just what they are. Like, it's very basic, and it works. Now, interestingly enough, my friend Card Dreamer, over from D class, he brought up the point of the Joy-Cons being used for like the motion controls, and that's one thing I never once thought to experiment with when I was playing. So I think during a next playthrough or something, it would be really cool looking into that a little bit, just to see if you can, yeah, use the Joy-Cons like freely, like one in each hand, and just do different things like that. So anyway, let's go to the gameplay. As I just skim over my notes here. Okay, the gameplay and the pace of the game. So we'll start with pace. The pace of this game is very gradual, and what I mean by that is, like, you load up your file, or if you're starting a new game or whatever, you just start out by honestly going at whatever pace you want to set. Like I said, there's no running that I noticed anyway, so, and your character has a bit of a limp, so you more or less, like, it's going to be different for each player. So for myself, I just took my time being as thorough as possible, just looking at things that interested me specifically. So in that sense, like, I'm just wandering around casually, and it took a few episodes before I really got into the mode of like what is the systematic approach to this, or like what is it that I'm going to be doing time and time again, because I very soon learned that, okay, you get in there, you find like one little piece, and then you take it back to the art room, and boom, that's that. Okay, so once I figured that out, then the episodes kind of started happening a little faster when I realized that, okay, I'm just looking for one thing and then heading back. It's as simple as that. So yeah, the pace is gradual in that sense, because you're not running, you're just exploring as you want to. It's just very relaxed in that sense, even though there was nothing relaxing about this game. And I'll get into that when I get to my next point here. It was a very, very atmospheric game, and because the nature of this game is horror and thriller, honestly, I was on edge constantly, which is interesting because it's like, for the amount of like jump moments or triggers that, or things that they put into the game that trigger, there are probably so few actually like programmed into the game compared to what they would have required putting into the game for like to equal how often I was like on the verge of jumping, or like whatever else. Like I'm not sure how else to like really articulate that. Like they did, I'll word it this way, they did the bare minimum, and yet I was on edge in this game 24/7, and I just think that is fantastic. Like they do the least bit of effort to get reactions out of me, and it's just like the whole time I'm just like, oh my god, like just like nerve shot every single time. So I think that's sweet. It was a super immersive game. I loved every moment. Interestingly enough, when I started the game, I was just keeping it to recording during the night to like add to the atmospheric nature, but very soon I realized that I can be recording this in broad daylight, and within minutes of getting into the game, I was totally oblivious of whether it was fully lit in this room or not, and I was still just as immersed, just as on edge, and jumping just as much as I would be or was during some of the nighttime recordings. So in that sense, like they did an immaculate job of polishing this beautifully horrific experience where you just jump in and you were just exploring things, and stuff is just flying off the walls, or just things that aren't even of like a possessed or haunted nature, like a mouse, for instance, just scurrying across the floor. Like that got me time and time again. Not like big jumps, but just like, oh man, like where like your brain starts going along this course of like a reaction before you've even had the time or given it the time to register the fact that, oh, this is not a threat, it's just something simple that's happening. So like so many beautifully done moments like that in this game. Like it just made for this overall incredible experience where, like I said, you're just on edge and you're just loving it. Because the thing is, like, I don't play too many horror, and because I exclusively cover Switch content, there are very few games of this genre. So anyway, yeah, let's continue moving on. Gameplay and pace. The gameplay is great. Like, it's fluid. You set your own pace, and it's just like so immersive, and I love it. It's so good. Okay, so for the next thing, I'm going to go over a few bits and pieces that kind of tie into the atmosphere and all that stuff. So one thing I like they did, there's one part where you are in this doll room. I think it's your daughter's room or something like that. Anyway, you trigger this scene where there's like a little carousel toy, I think, spinning around, and when you click on it, your view, like, it's kind of as if you're on it in a way, even though it's like this tiny thing, but you start spinning around the room, not like fast or anything, but you spin around the room and you see writing on the wall at one point, and then when you get to like 180 degrees, so like the opposite, you'll see at the far end of the room this windowsill, and the window might be open or something, but there's like a doll head with glowing eyes, and you're just like, oh, what the hell? And then of course you go away and you come back to the wall with the text, but this time the message is different. And then again, you turn around and you see that the doll is getting closer. And so this is one of the coolest things in terms of like how they designed it and just the brilliance. Now again, this may or may not have been intentional. I'm almost positive it was, but they did this so beautifully. They, like, again, so you go from message to seeing this thing get closer to then seeing the message again and back and forth. But so like what they did is they, in a matter of like 20 seconds or whatever it is, they programmed my mind to anticipate that it would always be coming back to the message, because at one point you turn around and see that the doll head is no longer where you thought it was going to be or where you were programmed to assume it was going to be. And my mind assumed, okay, well, we're still spinning, so next comes the message or like a message. But what they did is a really cool trick where you are already programmed to think there's going to be that next thing that you have been seeing every time you've come like every time you've turned around in that direction. But what happens is they do this surprise where instead of the message, the doll head is right there, pretty much in your face with those glowing eyes. And that got me, oh my God, you guys, because I was convinced, like in my mind, very quickly they had trained me to think like, okay, the message is a safe place, nothing's coming at us, but boom, they just inserted this doll head right there, and oh my God. So I thought that was brilliant on their part. Now, yeah, but like, okay, and this next bit ties into what I was saying about how they can do the bare minimum and still get people on edge all the time, or as often as they're gonna experience that kind of energy. Because like for me, like it was whatever I was willing to, it was like the jumps and all that kind of stuff, but like that's all my doing in terms of like what I'm bringing to the experience and what I'm willing to put into it. Not that, and I don't, what I mean by that is I'm not faking any of that stuff, but it's like, if we're gonna get really to the truth of the matter, like all they're doing is having graphics on a screen do one thing or another, and just these like sound effects. Okay, so it's like, it's not scary stuff, and yet my brain makes it into this response, and I think that's really fantastic. So that's what I mean by like, they do very little and yet it reaps this amazing amazing and really colorful array of responses from the player. So now getting back to my point here, so what I'm about to say is that every corner in the game, every hallway, every desk, like no matter where you are in this game, nowhere is safe. Like, oh man, like they just did an epic job, because like you never know what is going to be jumping out at you. You never have a clue what is just going to like peacefully fall down on its own, or like whatever, like, or like a rodent scurrying, like I said before. Like, it's just, yeah, honestly, it's just, you, like, for me, I was always on edge, because very quickly, like, all they did is like, oh, a few things here, a few things there are the things that jump out at you, but that sets the foundation for the player then thinking like, oh my god, I have no idea what it's going to be next time that comes flying at me, or shifts right before my eyes for like a split second, or like even something as simple as opening a door. All it took for me one time was like going to open a door and there just being this flash of like this grotesque looking apparition, and then after that my nerves were shot in terms of entering doors or approaching doors, because it was like every time it was like, oh man, what is it going to be this time? Like, is there going to be something here? And so that just amps up the nerves are shot level like 100-fold. It was just nuts. Another thing they did great in this game were the cramped areas. There were a few sections where the hallways get so narrow, and sometimes like you just have like these little corners that just go here and here and here, and you just feel cramped as all hell. And oh man, I remember this one place in the basement or something, wherever it was, and it was super cramped. I think the most cramped section and the most corners in the game, and I just remember dreading it, but like still enjoying it, of course, because it's like, oh my god, like what the hell? But I really loved how something as simple as corners, you learn to just be so apprehensive about, because it's like, oh man, anything can come around them. And like, you wouldn't believe how like in a game like Doom, you go around a corner, or like any other game for that matter, you just go around a corner casually, and you don't give it a second thought. In this, it's like, okay, even after I go past the corner, I'm still the one that is choosing to turn around and see whatever may be there. 90% of the time, there's nothing there when you turn around a corner. So it's like, okay, whew. But again, there's that foundation of like, oh my god, there's going to be something, or there might be something. Holy smokes, do I want to do this? But of course, like if you're going to go through the game, then it's going to require hitting the button to turn around and look. Like, it's just, but again, it adds to that atmosphere. It adds to the overall experience, like being on edge. Like I said, I'm going to be saying that the whole review, because that was like an underlying thing for me, just on edge constantly. So yeah, just beautiful design, and just I love the psychology that ties into this game, just like what the player is going to experience, and how much they're going to invest into the experience, whether they realize it or not, or whether they mean to or not. So a lot of things surface in that sense. It's really, really a treat, in my opinion. Okay, so this is another really interesting one, the lamps in this game. So if you guys checked out the entire playthrough that I did, you'll notice that anytime there was a lamp, I would be turning it on. And it was interesting because I was well aware that this was a false sense of security, and yet I was doing it anyway, which I think is really, really cool. But I would do that because it was like, I want to illuminate as much of this freaky space as possible, even though knowing full well that lights can be snuffed just like that. Lights don't help. Like, you can jump just as high, or you can be just as on edge when a room is fully lit. So, But for whatever reason, there was something in me that was like, okay, turn the lights on because that equals more safe. And I really love that relationship with the darkness in this game, and just it representing a morbid and I would say uncertainty, but in this game it's certain. Like the darkness just breeds creepy stuff and things that will jump. So even though like the dark and light both have moments where you can be jumping like crazy, I just found myself feeling a bit of a reprieve every time I afforded myself the opportunity or took the time to just like turn on a light. It was like, oh, okay, we turned a light on, okay, we're good. Even though it's like, no, we were never we were never in a state of like at peace or like feeling like okay in this game. So yeah, that was very interesting. And okay, this ties into my next point. The lights going out is kind of tying into that, and it's another simple trick that they did. And again, like going back to my point of them doing very little to evoke certain responses, sometimes the lights would just go out and nothing else would really happen. It would lead into other things eventually, but not necessarily right away. So I think this is so cool because of what you are applying to the experience or how you are perceiving it, and to what degree you are taking things. Again, like they can do the most bare minimum. So for instance, sometimes lights would just go out, and because your brain is the one attaching all these things to the experience, something as simple as a light going out, you, like for myself anyway, it was just like, oh my God, instant dread. What is going to happen? What is about to jump out at me? Or like, who knows what, just like a million things racing through my mind, just from something as simple as a light switching off, or things going dark and maybe the music changing or sound effects starting to come into play. So like, again, like they're like next to nothing is happening to you, and yet it's just like, oh my God, this like panic moment. And that, like they got this bang on in this game. Like they did an immaculate job. I love this game. It's so good, and they just did an incredible job of setting the stage and just having the player explore and just get into a mess of triggers. I also like that very little is explained in this game. You're like, you see things, and some of them make sense in terms of why they would be in this house, given the premise or the nature of the game itself. And yet at the same time, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. Like for instance, Card Dreamer and I were talking about each episode in the comments. By the way, like if you want to see like a more in-depth look at the game, just be sure to read all the comments from every episode, because we got into all sorts of stuff. And this review, I'm not going to like rehash or even recall every single thing we talked about, but one thing that he mentioned was like the doll parts. Like there are some rooms like where you just see all these dolls or doll parts, and like there's no mention of the guy ever being like a toy maker or anything like that. So it's like, why are there all of these components? Like he's an artist. Like sure, like yeah, he could be someone who makes things, but the game never really hints in that direction. So it's like, why is there all this stuff in the game? Like there are just, and that's just one example. Like there are other times where like you'll just see things and you'll be wondering like what the hell is this, or like why the hell is this here? And so like in that sense, like the game really doesn't give you a lot of information. It kind of just like throws you in you do your own thing and you're left with questions or wondering about whatever things you want to wonder about. Like, if you're not going to pick up on these things because they just don't enter your mind, then that's fair too. Like, but again, that ties into like this just being very much about what the player picks up on, what the player is going to attach to the experience and what they're going to make of it, more or less. So yeah, that's that. Let's talk about music for a moment. There aren't a ton of songs that play or tracks that play through this, but there would be these cues where something would happen and it would go from maybe like a quiet room to just hearing the rain to a song being played, and it just immediately shifts the energy like that. Either it's some old school song being played on like an old device and you're just like creeped out from that, or it's like an actual like soundtrack piece which just adds to the atmosphere, or just like I said, they were masters of setting the stage in this, and so sometimes you would just have this piece come on and you would just be either dreading it, or sometimes it would be like a more laid back, like soothing kind of song, but still with like eerie qualities. And so like just depending on which one it was just an immediate turn into like a different direction in terms of your emotions or just your responses. So like all in all, really love the music. To be honest, like it, for what little there is, it's beautiful music. I remember commenting time and time again throughout the Let's Play that like some of these songs are just absolutely beautiful to listen to, and they're just really nice, and they just really fit the game for sure, 100% in my opinion. Okay, another thing I have written here is barriers, and this was something I really enjoyed. And again, this is a thing that just has everything to do with the player and what they bring to the table. So barriers, you, as far as I know, you are never able to leave the house. Like you're not able to go out windows. Yeah, so like sometimes there are gates. I'll give an example of what I'm getting at here with barriers. Sometimes you'll be in a room and the window will be shut. You're not able to open the window, and it's kind of like it's raining outside. You can hear it. You can see the water on the window. It's blurry. They create this great sense of feeling enclosed and kind of like not necessarily trapped, but like you don't have vision into the outside world. Like you're very much limited to this horror house and you are just in there, okay? So there would be times constantly where like I'm just looking out this raindrop covered window, or like the rain beating against the window, and it's like you can't make out details of like what is beyond. So you just feel very cut off from everything else, and I think that is just incredible. And at the same time, because you don't have these details to fixate on, you, or at least I, was like, okay, I'm not able to make sense of anything beyond, so that translates to not a clear image in my mind, which then means like, okay, is there a danger? Is there something that I'm not recognizing that could be jumping out at this point? Or so yeah, just like little things like that. Another example is this one like basement room, or other times where there's like metal bars over a doorway or something like that, and there will be darkness beyond it, so you can literally only see like a meter or two, but there might be like some object of interest just like within that range of sight. But let me tell you, you guys, like, oh my god, being close, like even though it's literally just pixels on a screen. Like, I did not want to be standing like my face right up to these gates or these, like, whatever, because again, there's that sense of dread, like, oh, if I'm so close, like something could lunge out at me, like a hand could attempt grabbing me, or just anything could be seen, or anything could happen. So like I was really, really on edge anytime, especially when there were moments like that. Another example is the elevator that we take a few times. You close the little gate that like slides over, but it's just like there are holes in between, like all the metal. And let me tell you, every time that I close that, like you're required to go close enough to close it. And every time I did that, I was thinking like, man, something could just jump into my view, and that would be it. I'd be just like a wreck. So interestingly enough, they never actually capitalized on that, but at the same time, it works because they didn't have to throw in a scare there, because like I was on edge enough anyway. But they easily could have just had like some like ghostly naked woman or something just like run across, and like, yeah, that would have been like a golden opportunity right like that. So yeah, that's just kind of what I mean by like, you feel enclosed and like you don't want to really look too far, but yeah, so maybe that gets across what I'm getting at. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. To be honest, like in terms of my notes, they were really shoddy, because I realized like, okay, when I actually get talking, that's when things will start happening. Excuse me. So overall, there were, okay, now I'm just kind of like gonna touch on like whatever topic, because that's pretty much it for like the specifics. Overall, there were a few times where it wasn't clear to me what I was supposed to be doing. Sometimes there was back and forth, and that was totally fine, because like you would trigger one thing. Let's say you would do this one thing here, and you'd be like, okay, there's nothing else I can do, so I'm gonna go back. But then you would realize like, oh, the door I just came from to get here is now gone. So it's like, okay, turn around again and go back. Now something else is different. That was totally fine with me. There were a few sections, however, where it wasn't so clear and obvious what I was supposed to do, and nothing was shifting. So at that point you realize, okay, I'm just not seeing something. I'm not being diligent enough in my search. So let's figure this out. I actually stopped a few episodes because I recognized very quickly that, okay, I'm not seeing it, so I don't want these dragging on too long. So in that sense, it's not that I feel they should have done things differently, because again, it's very much my responsibility, and it's going to take me as long as it does. So I don't feel like they necessarily should have done anything differently, to be honest. I just feel like when you're doing a game like this for the first time, you're going to have those moments where it's not that you're even stuck, it's just that you haven't checked everything yet. So when you do check everything, you will then have the pathway revealed for you. So if you haven't played this game and you're thinking about it, definitely play it. I will recommend this to almost anyone. If you don't like horror games, if you don't like being on edge, if you don't like jumping, then don't play it. But at the same time, like, it's still worth playing it, like, because of just the richness that they pumped into this, and just the detail, and just the nature of the story. Like, it's just very unique, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic... Oh, just one second. I want to blow battery. I will just switch there. Okay. Yeah, so like it's just a fantastic experience, and I think it's really worth checking out, even if it's not your cup of tea. Just, or at least check out other reviews, watch a Let's Play, just at least see what it's like if you're not going to like buy it yourself. Because why not? Like it's just so cool. Like I love the game. It's not the kind of game that I will play too often, but I am interested in doing another run because, interestingly enough, there are different endings as far as I know, and so like I had one ending where the painter isn't pleased with his painting, and so he just goes into a room with a ton of other very, very similar paintings, and he just chucks it in the room, and that's it. Game over. And then when you go back to the title screen or the menu after the credits roll, there's a new option that says finish it. And so in my mind, I'm just like, wow, like I didn't complete something, or I didn't do something because I'm being told to finish it or do it again. And so I think that's really awesome, because I have no clue what would be required of me to actually finish it. Like, am I supposed to avoid certain scenes, like when the ghostly woman like catches you and you end up passing out? Like, I have no idea. Like, and like, sure, I could look it up, but like at this point it's been out long enough, and like people have probably divulged that info, but I don't want to look that up. I just want it to be things that I experiment with on my own the next time I play. And so I like the fact that they have that replayability in there, in that sense, where it's like you have, like some games will have a very obvious, like, okay, do this the next time you play. But this for me is like, no idea. Absolutely no clue. And that's fantastic. What else is there to say? I think, yeah, to be honest, I think that may be it. I may just leave off there, you guys, because I don't think there is too much else. Like, yeah, honestly, in a nutshell, like, absolutely incredible experience. Definitely recommend it. Very, very cool. Very atmospheric. Just such a solid job, and I really enjoyed discussing it with Card Dreamer. Every time an episode would come out, he would check it out. Just really cool, just seeing what things he would pick up on and what things I might have missed or wasn't even thinking about. So yeah, all in all, awesome title. Really, really cool. If you are looking for a horror thriller game to check out, like this, hands down, absolutely. Anyway, that's going to be it from me, you guys, this time around. But thank you for joining me for another review, kind of like sit down and chat review. I'm really enjoying doing this kind because it's just an opportunity to just sit and talk, and yeah, I trust you guys are enjoying them as well. Anyway, you guys have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.